Hey y'all, it's Zach, the legal tech advisor here at Lawyerist. Today I'd like to talk to you about remote practice management tools, specifically about Cosmolex, a full service cloud based law practice management system. Recently, I sat down with Erica Bursler and she showed me around some of their collaboration and remote practice tools. Have a look and see what you think.
Hi, I'm Erica Bursler. I'm the Vice President of Product Communications here at Cosmolex, and I'm really excited to talk to you not just about overall what Cosmolex is, but how to leverage it better with the online requests or functionality that people are looking for. I think definitely in the last few years, it is not just businesses, but consumers that like to function a lot more remotely, whether that's through an online form, could be a purchasing, could be communication, could be a sharing of documents. That's become a high priority. So I figure what we'll really cover today before we get into the software itself is just a brief introduction. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Cosmolex, but
Mm-hmm.
we are a cloud application, practice management, obviously, that allows you to take care of your day-to-day practice management needs and also your trust and business accounting all within the one application. And like I said, today we'll focus specifically on a little bit of a tour of the system, but focusing on those collaboration points as to
Mm-hmm.
how to not just work remotely, but work efficiently and more effectively remotely.
Right. And Erica, first thing, thanks for being with us and
Sure.
talking about this. I think this is a great topic, even as we've gone into remote. But I think people are starting to see that remote is more than just being able to log into your computer from anywhere. It is
Mm-hmm.
about communicating, and I think I'm glad we're highlighting this with Cosmolex because I think with all of the things you can see on the screen here, with Cosmolex controlling all of those things and having it in the same system, it makes this online communication and sharing and collaboration have a lot more potential. So I'm excited to
Yeah.
hear about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even before we get into the functionality, one thing I want to talk about is security. I know
Hmm.
that's always a big conversation, not just with remote access, but with sharing information, whether it be with clients or internally.
Hmm.
And one thing that we've really done to really put a high priority on security is we achieve SOC 2 attestation. And
Fantastic.
a lot of people might be like, what is that?
Yes.
um, but pretty much it's the ability to, there's kind of these third party, not requirements, but certification,
Right.
verification standards that you can go through that is a standard for service organizations. So that includes software as a service.
Hmm.
And it basically means how do you manage your customer data? What standard are you held to? And we took the initiative to actually withhold that standard, get audited this past year.
Hmm.
And we're planning on actually achieving SOC 2, which is every 6 months. So every 6 months going through this audit. And it's not just about your data centers and how you manage physical customer data, but how we function as a business. What are
Right.
our processes? What standards are we held to? So that was a pretty big achievement to do internally. And I figured we'd talk about it since we're talking about cloud.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we skip over a lot of times, but people are interested in because they don't know exactly how to really ask about what sort of security protocols you put in place. It's
Mhm.
one thing to say, yes, we have a secure socket layer, for all of our information in transit, and we encrypt things at rest. But how good are your internal passwords? Do you
Yeah.
have multi-factor authentication for the users? Do you have multi-factor authentication on your own stuff? And I think it's important to highlight that this is a third-party standard that is out there. It is a extremely I want to say common standard, but it
Mhm.
is an extremely
Well known.
popular, yes,
Yeah.
well-known third-party standard. So the end user doesn't have to go do this research on their own.
Hmm. Correct. Yep. And it gives us a roadmap to be like, okay, what's our checklist? What do we
Right.
need to meet and have somebody actually verify us against that? So
Right.
figured I'd start with that.
Yes.
And now let's kind of dive into the program.
Hmm.
And I want to start with just kind of the typical workflow of a law firm, first of which is intake. Intake can happen at the very beginning, you're working with just a lead, or it can happen throughout the case if you have specific information that you need to collect.
Hmm.
And one of my favorite features is actually just having custom fields. the ability to customize the type of information you collect that may be more relevant to maybe a specific area of law or the type of work that I'm doing or the client that I'm working with. And in Cosmolex, we have under our setup area, this custom field section.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all the fields that I have created, and they could be all different types, whether it's a text box, a pick list, a date, calendar date.
Mm-hmm.
And these fields can be really powerful with how you work internally. Of course, they help with automation, with document assembly, with filtering information in the system,
Right.
but also with that intake. So we have within the system this form template. So this is your intake forms that you can basically create. And I have a template here that I've already created that you can see. This is my general intake form.
Mm-hmm.
I can assign it to an area of law. This is more of a general one, so I typically would not. And I can include fields like your name and your email, your nickname, how did you hear about us, what's this case description,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth, and even provide help text. So if there's a guiding statement you can make as to what information has to go into that field, you can do that to aid your clients once they're filling that out.
Okay. And I assume you can put custom fields into this.
Absolutely.
You can put
Yeah.
all the custom fields that are created, unlike some products that are out there.
Yeah, custom fields, also any of the system fields that are included,
Mm-hmm.
contact matter type fields, even a field that you want to create on the fly that maybe doesn't have to go anywhere, but you just want to capture it on the form,
Okay.
you could do that too. But definitely the power is really in that custom field information.
Yeah.
Because if you need like a license number or, something that's fairly specific for only those types of cases,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to just plop that in and they can go ahead and fill that out.
Gotcha.
And when they come in, you have to be able to organize that information. So we have more on the firm side. They can look at their forms, what's been sent out to a client, what's been submitted, what is in progress means they maybe started it, but they haven't finished.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one that's actually been submitted, meaning they completed the form, they submitted it back to us, and then we can process it. So I can then say, okay, what matter, if there is one already, maybe there's not, maybe it's still a lead, but what matter do I want this associated with, or what contact?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can actually go ahead and populate all of those fields with the information that they provided.
Okay, so this is a form in a slightly different way than I would kind of think of some intake forms. A lot of intake forms I think of as embedded code that you put onto your website, and it's really a contact us form. This looks to be something where we've kind of gotten past a little bit of a contact us, and we're sending them an email with
Mm-hmm.
a link to a form that is associated with them specifically, but this form is a template
Mm-hmm.
that we have created. And so when they fill this out, it's already going directly into their stuff, but it's also a
Yeah.
little bit more specific to what you're actually trying to get from them, as opposed to a really, really broad contact us sort of initial intake form.
Yeah, it could be a very brief follow-up to like maybe a website form, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they just reached out to the office and we need to get a little bit more information.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad you brought up that point, because this, you're right, it may be for very specific use cases. It might be for somebody that we already have some sort of interaction with that we want to gather more information, or a file that we've already been working on long-term that we realize, oh, phase 2, we need these additional things from you.
Right.
The
Right.
other add-on to that is we do integrate with Law Ruler now, which is a legal CRM, as you know. So
Yes. Okay.
if somebody is looking for a lot more of that lead management piece, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, having it on your website, feeding into the system, being able to manage the communication with that lead, that is really powerful through that integration.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to highlight kind of how the systems work together. What's the benefit of having an integrated CRM with your practice management tool?
Right.
And one of the things is I mentioned those custom fields. So you've created those custom fields. You have a lot of this valuable information that you want. Law Ruler also has an intake process. And as they're creating their forms, I actually have the form builder here, their intake form builder.
Mm-hmm.
I can say, as I'm building these forms, which page, because your custom fields can also be organized by pages or area of law.
Okay.
What field, and which field in this intake should it be mapped to. Why that's beneficial is, let's say I'm using my Law Ruler account as just my everyday lead management tool. Eventually, hopefully, this client will become a workable matter.
Right.
When it becomes a workable matter, I can actually send this file. There's a button right here where I could say send to Cosmolex. And what that will do is it will send the contact, the matter, related parties, documents, but also these custom fields. What was completed in that intake, what is usable for me going forward in this file. It's going to kind of carry along through that matter management process as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I can envision a scenario where you do kind of an intake here, send it to, you do an intake here, send this information over to Cosmolex, and then Cosmolex says, well, we're in discovery phase now, and so we need to get these documents from you.
Yeah.
And that's where that form that we just looked at says, hi, we need this extra information from you that's beyond just our lead intake in Law Ruler.
And we've talked with firms that have very different needs. It kind of depends on what they do. Honestly, the amount of leads that come in.
Yeah.
Every firm has different requirements. We have firms that look at our intake forms, they go, that's all I need. I just want to automate data entry.
Yes.
And then we have firms that go, I want to manage my entire marketing automation. I want to manage my lead pool. I want to prioritize and rate those. I want to set up automations. Great. If you want to do that, then there's a lot more robust integration that you can utilize to get that additional functionality.
Right. Right. Yes. And I think that's a good thing to highlight. You can do intake pretty well with just Cosmolex. You can have people come in. You can, but if you're, if you need something much more robust like Law Ruler, then you guys do have a great integration with them.
And this was fairly new within the last few months, so I figured I would highlight it for those who might not know it's there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we completed, let's say, the intake side of things. I'm actually just going to hop on into Cosmolex in my matter list. And I wanted to bring you into one of these files. We'll go into this one right here and kind of talk about some of the, again, those collaboration points as you're working on a file. So obviously, this is a cloud application, so you're all accessing similar, based on permissions, you might have different access, but similar information no matter where you're logging in from. But a couple things to highlight is I did mention the custom fields before. You can organize them by pages. So if I had certain fields that are related to certain types of information, I could do that and also link it to an area of law. So if this file happened to be family law, it would just populate those pages automatically for me, which is helpful.
Okay.
For billing, so of course we have your full time tracking and invoicing here. So when it comes to time tracking, one of the biggest things that people like to hear is we do have a mobile app. So be able to track time, whether it's in the application, on your phone. I'm a huge proponent of getting your time and your costs tracked right at that second, if at all possible.
Right.
Because then they forget. So that, of course, is available as well.
I have been the guy sitting there on Friday saying, wait, hang on, let me go back through my email. Let me go back through my phone calls, my text messages, all of that. And not only are you going to miss something, but you're also likely going to cut it down.
Yeah.
You know, the tie is going to go to your client. So you're going to lose billable time. In my opinion, you're going to lose billable time doing it that way.
Sure. And I know a lot of people have either shifted to or have thought of moving to cloud applications now, and many of them, if not most of them, come with a mobile app. So it's just good to think about, no matter what technology you're using in your firm, see if that's available. It could be on your iPad, on your phone. Different staff has different needs, but if it's available, might as well check it out.
Right.
In regards to invoicing, so of course you could do your batch invoicing here. You can finalize from here, make your edits from here. In terms of delivering, you do have batch emailing. We have a client portal as well that you can share, which I'll show you in just a little bit. And you do have your ability to accept payments. So one thing that we really pride ourselves on, we said what compliance obviously is, since you do have that full built-in trust accounting, you can do that functionality here as well. But also we do have the built-in payments, and that's through Cosmolex Pay. You have the option to applying a payment either by credit card or e-check. And if I were to do it directly within the system, like I'm doing right now, that's more for, let's say, I'll just put an amount just so I could show you the screen. let's say I had the client on the phone or they're physically in the office with me and I want to go ahead and type in their payment information. I could definitely do that. But in that online collaboration world of maybe your client can't come in for the next 2 weeks, or maybe they, for some reason, can't reach out to you, or they just like the convenience of it, which honestly is a marketing service that you could provide or marketing benefit. Here is the same invoice that I've emailed. So of course, here we have that click to pay. They could click on this link, pay it directly from here, submit it, and it could be at any time, day or night, and that will process fully in the system, not just from a billing perspective, but also from an accounting perspective. So if there is a partial payment, that will get applied to that invoice and also allocated to the general ledger appropriately. And I'll show you in a little bit how this also plays into the client portal when I get to that section, but that's also a very popular way that people like to pay their invoices.
Right.
Here too is the save payments, which I'll show also in the portal. This is really great for if a client's like, here's my credit card, I don't want to enter it every time. I want to just save it for future use, but securely.
Right.
They could go ahead and save that information. It's not accessible to anybody else in the firm. I just see, as you see, the last 4 digits, but it's a convenience ad.
Right. And this is going to be something where the lawyer doesn't have to worry about their own PCI compliance because it's saved in Cosmolex system, and they can say, listen, I have a third party who is saving this appropriately.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot of when we talk about technology, it just comes down to saving time and being a convenient option.
Right.
I can, of course, find that authorization form and type it in myself, but if I don't have to do that and it's done securely, why not? Okay, another thing that we can go through is kind of just going down the list of our little tour here is with banking. So anybody, whether you have a bookkeeper internally or externally, can access or you can provide access to the transactions within the system. And that includes matter transactions, your full firm accounting. We do also have a bank feed, which is another great convenience ad to help you with your reconciling each month if you did want to connect to whatever financial institution you use.
So, and I think that's great, first thing, because not everybody has that, but it sounds like you said that you can provide access to your accountant to come in here and deal with this accounting. I just wanted to highlight that because yes, your accountant may, work in QuickBooks or something like that, but that is one of the benefits of QuickBooks is that they can get into your system and that you can provide remote access for your accountant to all your banking information, which is kept inside of Cosmolex.
Yeah, gone are the days where every 2 weeks your bookkeeper has to come into the physical office to do bookkeeping tasks or accounting tasks, which I like to mention. Not only is that just nice to be able to collaborate and work online and remotely, but you could hire from anywhere essentially. So if for whatever reason in your town or your local area, you can't find a qualified bookkeeper or accounting staff, don't limit yourself to that area. You could be across the country, really anywhere, and they could still be in the system and work with you effectively. Moving down the list, I'll talk about emails. So what's interesting about emails, and this is more for just archival, is how many times have we sent an email and forgot to copy a specific person? Especially if it's an internal person. They should have been aware, they should be in the loop, but I totally forgot. So I love these email archival tools. We specifically have an Outlook add-in, which is really helpful because if I forget to copy someone, it doesn't matter because all of the emails related to that file are going to end up in this one centralized place and they could review them if they need to. So if I hop into here in my mail, like I have a email that I was reading, and I can come here and say, all right, I want to post this to a particular file. And I can just select that from here. Let's say it's the family law file. I could say if it's going to be billable or not. And we're going to be adding even more functionality to this even soon. And then submit. And that's it. It will go to that file and I can continue going through my inbox. And I know whoever has access to that file is going to see that communication without me having to copy them.
Again, that's the kind of remote collaboration.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If everything's in one place, then you don't have to ping 15 people to let them know that something just happened.
Absolutely. With calendaring, honestly, the biggest thing that most people think about is your whatever calendar you're using currently. We do have an integration. Let me actually just extend this out a little bit so you could see some items here.
Mhm.
So we have integrations with Office 365 as well as Google Calendar. So most people, we do have a built-in calendar, but most people are very comfortable using the email and the calendar that they're already using. Half the
Mhm.
time, they just want to have the visibility. So they can sync the system with those calendars as well to allow anybody, again, it's on my calendar, but if it's related to this file, anybody can see it if they need to and they have access.
Now, is that a two-way sync where Cosmolex also kind of takes in things that I've put on the calendar, um, on my Gmail calendar specifically, and brings that into the system, or is it just a
Yes.
one? Okay.
It is a two-way sync, absolutely. So if you're in, let's say, your Outlook and you add an event, it will add into your Cosmolex, vice versa. I personally love the way of going from Cosmolex and having it show up in Outlook because there's a lot of matter-specific information. Like if
Yes.
I'm adding an event, I can say, which file is this for? Do I want to share it in the portal? Is this billable? Things that are
Mhm.
more practice management related. And then
Mhm.
that event can show up in your Outlook calendar for
Right.
whatever access you need.
Right. Well, and the specific use case I'm thinking of is I when I was practicing, I would go to a specific court on this day, this day, this day, this day, and it was just every couple of weeks or something like that. And so
Mhm.
it is handy for me to be able to go and see in the calendar of Cosmolex when I'm scheduled for that
Yeah.
county, and so I don't need it specific for the matter, but I know I'm scheduled for that county, and so I can see it easily and schedule myself
Sure.
in the matters of that county. So,
Absolutely. It's a lot of the access. There's that global access where I just want to see what I have going on today,
hmm hmm
regardless as to who it's with. It could be just mine. And also that matter piece, like whoever is working on that file, if
hmm
it's important for them to know that information, then you could just tag that file and it will get parked there for them to see.
okay.
Moving on down to tasks. So we do have full task management within Cosmolex. One of my favorite tips just with remote work in general is learn to increase accountability with task management. Actually assigning out tasks, giving detailed descriptions, having somebody complete it so you can follow up like basically in a collaborative fashion. So we have the ability to comment. I can follow up on an item with a comment and say, hey, what's the status on this? This is past deadline, or it looks like we're not on track, or is this completed, without having to call that person up, walk to their desk. And a lot of people are struggling to move away from that traditional mindset, but I
Yes.
think it's important to just be able to ping somebody quick, have them worry about it, and not be a 30-minute phone call
I think
instead.
we could go into an entire session talking about that, the
Mm-hmm.
shifting that mindset and how that, to me, this is a better way to manage people. It is
Yeah,
definitely a better way to manage people remotely.
absolutely. We at Cosmolex, like me personally in my business career, have always been very process driven
hmm
and try to put everything in a task. Because when you have these loose emails or you have just an instant message that's sent to somebody, it gets lost in the
hmm
shuffle. And there's
hmm
no accountability of to did I tell that person? Do they know? What's the date? When should this be done? So it's just a very organized way to keep track and be able to follow up effectively. And know also that we have this item called workflow too, which is if I have a checklist of 20 tasks that have to get done every time there's a new file,
hmm
well, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to generate that checklist, assign it to the proper people, and let them do their jobs.
Right. And even if that's just an intake checklist or
Mm-hmm.
the outboarding
Yeah,
checklist, something like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can set it up like the template basically can be like, let's say it's those 20 tasks. Some might be a few days before another, a
hmm
week after something else. And then it looks at this, basically this trigger date, and will calculate all those due dates accordingly. And we'll assign it to the appropriate people based on that template. But also whoever's working these tasks can say how far along they are.
Right.
They could say, leave me alone. I'm halfway done. You know, I
I
got this.
yes, yes, that's exactly right. You think of these following up on task management as a way to make sure people are on their stuff, in a way to save them time from not having to deal with you. But you can also look in there and it keeps you from having to do a deep follow up if you look
Yeah.
and say, nope, they're good, moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to documents, I mean, of course, as you're collecting documents, you may use just Cosmolex's document storage, which we do have built in. We also integrate with outside tools. This is mainly just a visibility thing. You know, I want to be able to see all of my documents that are stored for a particular file, or I may want to share them in the portal. You know, maybe this is something that is valuable for my client to see for whatever reason. Maybe they need to review it or have a copy on their own. Or we have this client portal as well, which is things that they've submitted through the portal. So it's a two-way sharing of documentation in a secure portal, obviously, where they can go ahead and say, hey, you required this documentation from me. Let me just upload that through a portal because that's way more secure than email.
Oh, yes, it is
Yeah.
way more secure than email.
Yeah.
So this client portal, I'm kind of trying to connect the dots here. You have,
Sure.
you know, you have one of those intake forms, or you have a form that is sent out to the client, and you're requesting some documentation. That form can go through that client portal, right?
It can. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And actually, let me hop on into that just to kind of paint that picture and tie together those loose ends.
Okay.
Is from the portal, from the firm's side, is they can choose what they want to share or not share on this particular file. It is not everything across the board because it doesn't always make sense. So I can say I want to share invoices. By far the most common is invoices and documents, but this forms is that intake form that I mentioned. So as long as I have this allowed, those forms that I mentioned at the very beginning, if it's already a file that's set up, I can share it directly through the portal and they could submit it directly through there.
Okay.
And to kind of look at what the portal looks like, I actually have one open for this particular client. So I've logged in as the client and I want to see what's going on, see what I need to address. And that could be a variety of things. These are all the things that I've given access to. This has full access to that client. And I can see all of the bills that I have specifically here. Is it paid? Is it not paid? For instance, this one here that is unpaid, I can just come and click pay and choose if I'm going to pay it by credit card or by bank account. I happen to have my bank account already saved from the last time. So I can actually just choose that. Review my payment information,
Right.
and then charge. And that way I can just submit that payment and it will come over to the firm side. The invoice is going to be up to date with all of the general ledger entries on the Cosmolex end.
Yeah, and again, I want, because you guys have that accounting inside of Cosmolex, not only does it show that that invoice is paid, but also the banking, the billing portion of that shows all of that, the AR as paid as well.
Yeah, just giving I'll actually just show you that quickly because that's an important point is it was this invoice right here that I just paid. So I can even see the details of what was on that invoice, how did it get allocated, what was the payment, was it by bank account, by credit card? And you could see here I had the e-check payment and which general ledger accounts were impacted because there was both cost and fee on that invoice.
And you don't have to worry about whether or not the general ledger will match QuickBooks general ledger or Xero general ledger or something like that. It is the accounts that are you set up within Cosmolex, and so you have a lot more control over that.
Yep. And it could be an added frustration sometimes for bookkeepers when they might not be the ones doing these activities, the receiving of the payments, but they're the ones on the other end and they're having to make sense of it. And if things are not correct, they're spending a lot of their time trying to reconcile between the two systems and figure out where's the mistake here and how do I fix it?
Right.
Yeah. A couple other things to highlight with the client portal. We did talk about the documents, as I mentioned, to just show you what that looks like is I've had these documents shared with me as the client so I can download, I can view if I just want to view it within the portal, or this is where I mentioned they can upload back to the firm and that will go into a designated client portal folder. So that way you can easily, I always say really with documents, the big thing is security, you know, having some sort of, and there are other portals, there are document apps that have portals as well. However you do it, you want to have a fully encrypted way of sharing that information because I really do think gone are the days where, depending on the type of document it is, but that everybody has to be physically present in order to receive a document or to sign it or send it back or anything like that. So this really allows them to share that information effectively, and it gives an area for the client to go to see kind of everything that's been going on and has been exchanged.
Well, and one way or the other, they can see, what have I uploaded? They can
Mm-hmm.
see, like, okay, I have uploaded that thing, the accounting for this estate, but I haven't uploaded the this claim or something like that.
Yeah.
So even, but I do think, like you're saying, the most important thing is that this is a secure way, in transit and at rest. So it's
Yeah.
fully secure, unlike, you can get that with email, but you have to have encryption on both sides. It is difficult. It's extremely difficult to get that with text message. So
Yeah.
sending a document that has confidential information via text message and via email is not usually the best way to go.
Yeah, and I always say, and us as a product company or providing a product, is there's the struggle between what you should do and what people do anyway.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
we always tiptoe that fine line of, yes, there should be a way to do this securely. We want to provide that option, and it's up to the law firm to use it or not. They're ultimately responsible for managing their information in a responsible way.
Yes.
But giving that option, and you could choose, like we have firms that go, well, not all my clients would use a portal. Like maybe I do mostly elder law or like estate planning, like you said, where they're not interested. You don't have to use it for those files. Use it for the files where it makes sense. Because as myself, I could tell you, and maybe it's more of a generational thing, but I really do think we're in this era with technology now where everybody expects to access things online.
I think so.
Whether I do something with it, I just want to see what's going on and be able to maybe make a payment or anything like that on my time, whenever that may be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully this was helpful. Just kind of wanted to give a little bit of a tour, but really highlight and pinpoint those points where, team collaboration, whether that's with task management or commenting, or who has access to that particular software from wherever they may be, but also how to really improve the experience for your clients, and understanding that that is an added value to your service. If they're allowed to have online payments, online portal, online intake, that is attractive to clients that you're trying to win over, possibly in a very competitive market.
Right. Well, and it's also sticky.
Yeah.
You have a client portal and they're used to using you. If you have a business client, you have a client portal, they're used to using you. It's extremely helpful. Then they're less likely to just, up and say, okay, well then in this case, in this matter, I'm going to use this other lawyer, Can we look at the client chat?
Sure. So we have this messaging. This is actually between, I don't know if I have chat specifically. Oh, here you can see. This is between my Cosmolex account and the client's portal. So I'm able to type a message here. The client will get a notification in their portal and they can log in and actually message me right back if they need to.
That's fantastic, because again, that is more secure, much more secure than text message. But it also is an inline sort of communication method that is familiar to people as well. And so again, this is a way to communicate with your client remotely in a secure and frankly responsible and reasonable way.
Yeah. And they can choose I hear firms that go, I only want the portal for document sharing, or I don't want anything else. If that's the case, and each file could differ, I just uncheck all of these, and the client will only see that. Like if I only allow invoices, they will only see that icon. They won't see anything else. So we try to make the functionality really tailored to the firm's needs and for that particular client, where they can decide, just like we talked with intake, what is your firm's needs? What makes the most sense for you? And try to provide the solutions that they can scale with if needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Erica, thank you for showing me around here. I think this was a good, comprehensive, thorough dive into how Cosmolex can help people can help law firms with, the remote environment, and help them get a step ahead of, the lawyer next door when they're looking for clients. If people want to learn more about this, where can they go?
Absolutely. So the best way is just go to Cosmolex.com. You can reach out to us directly. You could set up a demo from there, start a trial, and then we'd be happy to follow up with you and answer any specific questions.
Okay. Sounds great. I appreciate it. And again, that's Cosmolex.com. Erica, thank you for being with me again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right.